think, important. De-radicalization, intervening where possible, just understanding the big issues around extremism and radicalization. Just by happy chance, I got to meet Dr. Ahmed at a breakout SAG session. I attended his session because it sounded so interesting, and it was a really serendipitous meeting. I'll let you introduce yourself for a moment, and then I'll talk about our schedule. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate. And my name is, as evident, I have I have two tags, so I thought it is worth collecting more. Even I mean, if it is possible. So um, basically, I teach as an adjunct in University of Winnipeg Political Science, and I'm also teaching a course in CMU since last year, conflict within groups and nonviolent conflict transformation. So this is my short bio, and I do lead a think tank. It's called Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada. It's also housed in Global College. So we do host of researches on displacement, refugees, children education in the camps, UN peacekeeping operations. So a very short 1 minute about the project. It's a public. Oh, you'll cover that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Linda, we will take over again now.
Just briefly, what we're going to do this afternoon, we're going to divide the session into three parts. Cal's just going to do what I expect is going to be a brilliant overview of the big picture of extremism and radicalization, dealing on some of the reality that we're facing as citizens, as teachers. And then that should take about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about, put a focus on the document and tell you a bit of background of where this came from, how it came to be. And hopefully we'll have time for some questions. And I don't know how you feel. Do you want people to hold their questions till after your presentation's over? After?
After.
Not, okay. So I'll take it away, Dr. Ahmed. Sit by where there is a document or grab a document, please.
Thank you, Linda.
I'll just go over here.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Lots of tables. Thank you for coming once again. And if you don't have our mighty resource book, please consider adding one. So again, typically we do presentations first, and then we switch to our resource book that we developed with teachers. And Linda will go into more details. It's a multi-year project that we just are wrapping up in this year. End of this year, it will be done. And last Friday or 18th, we had our final wrap-up conference. So just to begin, this is a kind of a complicated project in a sense that the idea of extremism and radicalization, these are heavily contested ideas and concepts. Each nations have their own ways of developing these definitions. There is no the definition. However, research community, they have some common understanding of the process, which is radicalization to violence, and some of the definitions of what constitute extremism. In this particular project, the way we approached to build a general consensus amongst educators and us, research community and practitioners, we started with teachers asking them, how do you want to define extremism and violence, the concept itself? And then we brought experts and in our various remotely and in person, just to interact with them because they have had experience in their personal lives spending with some other tough organizations. So before I go into my next slide, I would like to share that this is a very tough topic in many senses, and the way our world is progressing, I am really not very much optimistic at this point in time because global conflict has very real local impacts, super real local impacts. And I'll show you a couple of them because we don't have a lot of time today to go over those. But what we'll do is we'll start by saying that, okay, I want to start with this particular slide. The conflict, global conflict has local ramifications. And it is again nothing new actually. Since 9/11, we do see the local impacts of global conflicts and how it impacts because of communities, diaspora communities, and being a country having so much of diversity. So diaspora group do pick up these issues very seriously. And the point of tension is actually diaspora groups become very frustrated and at some time angry towards the government because their expectation is government should do some kind of intervention either through speech statements and all these things. So this tension is ever existing. So we do see a very high rise of these frustrations and anger after October 7th, and which all of you are aware. And this absolutely horrendous event of October 7th. So this has local ramifications in terms of protests, in terms of making groups and conversing about both sides and all these things. And people become very judgmental, right? I mean, people have, we all have our political biases. We do subscribe some ideas, and of course, whatever we believe, we strongly support that. But what is unique in our time is it is not about myself too, because I want you to subscribe to my ideas. I want you to support the things that I'm trying to say on all these things. And it is so easy to build a online community. Anti-Semitism is has spiked like for some time, but from since October 7 it is huge. And I would only like to share with you my own personal experience of teaching a course in CMU. In last semester, I was teaching a course and I invited a guest speaker. But the way I develop guest speakers is I bring from each community. So one from community X, one from neutral, and one from other community. But at the end of this speaker who was speaking about the conflict happened to be from Jewish community. I found a massive, um, let's say, campaign against both of us. Students have written letters and to the university authorities want to ban these speakers from university campaign and all. But what I was a little surprised, I mean, not surprised actually, but I was prepared to answer any questions. But what I thought that where is the space of being engaged meaningfully? And of course, the contestants of the ideas from various communities are different, right? Expression and historical claims, whoever is claiming. But there is hardly, I at that time I didn't see any space to constructively engage even with the students, because after my desperate try with nobody wants to talk and come into an idea that okay, let's talk it out and how we can do. So this is my personal experience dealing with anti-Semitism. And you know all these statistics, you can search yourself. It has grown so much. Side by side, Islamophobia also spiked 1,300 times according to National Council of Canadian Muslims. Just yesterday they released a stat. And these two things are synonymous. I don't want to say like that because October 7th changed the whole dynamics of this conflict, both locally and globally. And my own perception of this conflict goes back because I'm a Muslim by religion. I do understand the nuances of the religion of itself. I don't have to study books. I have studied enough in my in my country when I grew up. So the problem of anti-Semitism is so ingrained. I have seen it, I have experienced it. It's not only the case, there are some which, because of the lack of space and time, I'm not sharing, but we can always talk if you want one to one. So, this is something I'm seeing that this hate against other groups, it is getting stronger and stronger day by day. And it is very difficult to talk to anyone because there is no middle ground in this particular conflict. Nobody wants to talk about a middle ground. How do you really achieve peace? And even the case of Ukraine and Russia, I ran a project for Department of Heritage, Public Safety. I saw similar thing. Like, we cannot talk to a community from Russia and Ukraine quite civilly with regards to their expectations. After when the encampments thing started from US and here too, what I felt myself as an adjunct in these universities, I wrote a piece in Conversation. It is available. You can read or find it. I said this thing because university campuses shouldn't be a place for proxy wars. It should be place of peacemaking, peace building, and understanding conflict in a comprehensive way. Each conflict, as a student of conflict and resilience and conflict and peace, I was taught, I was trained by my professors and practitioners that conflict has various dimensions. At once upon a time, I was working with the UN as a peacekeeper in Western Sahara. I was taken, I was taken to many places. So these are the things that we are somehow missing in our today's conditions. So there is a stat, as some of you might know. This is something just occurred 2 weeks ago. So I have blocked out some of the identification marks because this is actively being investigated now. But this person lives with us in this city. And on the right side, the summary that you see, it is done by X's own algorithm. So X, if you have an account, so X does its own analysis of your contents. So it is the analysis or findings of X on the right, and this is the basic account where the gentleman or gentlewoman, I don't know the identity myself. So they're talking about, but it was brought to our attention by one of the team members of our team. So this is something we look forward, that if something occurs somewhere down the road, if you have any questions, do talk to us, because we know a lot of experts around the globe. We can help. This is again a very recent observation of one of our friends, a team member of this project, because on Friday we spoke about Mr. Andrew Tate, the famous Andrew Tate, and misogyny and this active club, all these things. And so she shared her observation with us in an email, and which is possibly quite happening in our surroundings, in our neighborhoods. And this is our concern, that at what age actually this kind of ideologies young people are subscribing to. And we have statistics and research papers from UK, some of the European countries, and you will be surprised that even children from kindergarten are subscribing to dangerous ideas. To the best of my knowledge, there is a homeschool in the US. I'm not going to the identifier here again, but there is a school, homeschool in the US, which adopted the syllabus of 1930s Nazi schooling system. So they actively teach that, and it was reported in the media as well. This particular phenomenon, active club, the masculinity, it is very much there, and in many cases we don't understand or we don't know, because we all want our children to be active physically and we push them to go to activities. That is absolutely fine, but underneath this group, especially Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, has it listed as one of the extremist groups. If you go to their website, you'll find, and I think I have copied from them. And this is particularly this group belongs to Rise Above movement. So there are many like this. You know this group by now, right? Mm-hmm. And Ryan Thorpe, actually, he was a good friend of mine, in a sense that I always invited him to speak to my class. So before he left Winnipeg Free Press, he used to come to my class to speak to my students. And the reason I'm bringing an old case because in Manitoba, Winnipeg, we have a feelings that nothing happens here. It's the backside of the world and all these things. We are all happy and all, and this is what exactly they think. So these groups, this kind of groups, they do actively recruit young people in our cities, just under our nose. And if you have ever come across the poster that they initially published, it is very, I would say, a benign poster posted in a lamp post in front of my office. And I was thinking actually it's a poster of a fringe, festival that we see often. So I thought, oh, it's a fringe, yeah, because they used runic alphabet, 16th century runic alphabet. So I thought, yeah, it's better to attend. I mean, it might be interesting. But actually, that was the recruitment poster of base. Foreign interference. I'll just quickly go over. It is also impacting and creating a whole bunch of social polarization, especially with regards to China and India. Russia, not that much, but Russia is included officially, as you know. But from China and India very lately, because Indian diaspora here are now kind of polarized into two groups. One is Sikh community versus Hindu community, based on their faith orientation. Totally, in these two kind of a binary situation. And especially the last week, I think you are all aware, expulsion of six diplomats and all these things. So FI is really creating another dimension of extremism and radicalization to violence, particularly with regards to Sikh community, the Khalistan movement. It is very much there up now, again rekindle the idea. And 1985 Air India bombing, 299 people killed. So these are again rekindled. Even this morning I was reading a newspaper article which goes back to 85 and talking about Khalistan movement and all. So this is another thing that we need to worry about now. Politics, the way we talk, the way we seek vote, the way we do political campaigns have greater ramifications towards creating extremism in our society. So this case, which came very latest October 20th, reported in the press progress, and I think I have a slide. Yeah. So with particularly the policymakers, those who are now officially elected in many of the places, have a track record of homophobia and talking about very extreme ideas. So here is a classic example, very latest from BC. So there are many. I don't want to bore you with these things. And of course, at the end, I think uh, we'll talk about the our main focus is teachers. We ended up with this idea that our teachers must be supported, and what is the best way to support is to provide them resources. We don't into don't want you to be overwhelmed with another bunch of books and activities. We don't want, rather we want to support you parallelly. If you want to know anything, do let me know. For example, one of the educators brought a case in front of us. We are dealing with it. So anything you need in terms of support, we have resource booklet and others. uh, our intention is to support you as best as we can. And we engage with teachers. Like today, we look forward to Mista and other organizations. We go out and we actively remain engaged because we think our teachers must be supported with the resources, as many as you can. But this resource booklet will keep updating in our website, as you see, moving forward. And just a quick note here, this is our forthcoming project. What we have heard over 3.5 years of our project is that there are so many symbols and ideas and things all around. It is very confusing which one is what. So what we did is we compiled 660 symbols that are widely used and shared in number of credible organizations like SPLC, then other those who track extreme groups. So we put a database here. If you go to our website, you can search actively. If you see something in your with your students and somewhere you want to verify, you can find it here, hopefully. But remember, these are also very creative. Students are very creative. They come up with a hybrid, all these things. But anyway, it's a start point. But if you want, just send me a screenshot. I will search myself and let you know what it stands for. And cross-border collaboration, we are actively in this area too. This is the very interesting documentary we have contributed, Canadian content. I myself also spoke in this documentary. If you're interested, this is a very real-time case of white supremacist attack on this gentleman right after 9/11 in the US. And he was almost killed, but he survived, and he turned his life in this cause. And it's called Pain and Peace. And we screened it in University of Winnipeg. The reason I show it, because the power of empathy, which we speak a lot in our resource booklet, is a classic example. The gentleman you see in the poster, he actually campaigned to save his killer's life from death sentence, because that what you call state has a death sentence provision. Eventually, he was executed, but he campaigned almost 2 years so that he is not executed. Western State Center is our uh, close friend in the US. If you have anything you can search about on in their websites, they also work like us with teachers, but in US they have a large followers of around 400 teachers that they work with. We are part of, I mean, ARIM is a project, and CRRIC is the organization. So organization is a part of New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern's Christchurch Call for Action Network. So we are in an advisory role in this organization, which is we are very proud of. And this organization and their mandate, which is now a foundation itself in New Zealand, they work in the digital forum, AI digital forum, and they are trying to motivate the tech giants to take actions to take down extremist idea, videos, and live streaming of shooting. So these are their main, what you call activities. MST, you all are aware, I'm not dwelling much, but what I'm trying to say today is that we are actively, our project coordinator and I, we are very much actively seeking their support in moving forward to remain actively engaged in this kind of activities. That's all, and I don't mean to really bother you, but we can take questions and answers now or later, whatever.
Whatever works for you. If there's anything right off the top that you would like to ask a question. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm very curious about timelines and other societal developments that have gotten us to this place. Like I've been I've been watching the October 7 events, and been increasing, well, like everyone has been increasingly aware of that polarization and so forth. Now, to me, it seems like post October 7th, the phenomenon we saw was more of a phenomenon that was there already. Now we see it, rather than something that developed. Because I really see it as a continuation of things that have been happening over the last 20 or 25 years in terms of people's polarized views. Politics isn't about the details anymore; it's about the extremes. And I'm just wondering, like, what trends, what causes, what other factors that you've identified in society or globally that have kind of pushed in that direction.
Arab-Israeli conflict is old, 7, 8 decades, no doubt in it.
Yeah.
But October 7th is a very dramatic turn in terms of the highest level of extremism and violence perpetrated against the Jewish community. I totally agree with you that it has a history of extremism in that particular area. But October 7th is really important because it changed the mode of violence. We must not forget that despite of all these, phenomena that we witnessed in that particular area for decades,
Yeah.
October 7 has changed because that was the expression of ultimate violence. And we all know that political settlement is not very easy in that area, especially in the political groups that is in power in Israel and also in the other side, right? But I would also like to remind, of the audience I speak and my students that October 7 must not be undermined and forgotten. None can justify October 7. Yes, we can. I mean, if we justify violence with violence, then where we end? We end nowhere. And this is something we all in a broader community should understand, that violence will not solve violence. And what we have achieved politically after October 7th attack, that is my bigger question. So the importance of October 7th is in this way I interpret. Because you see, in 1993, Oslo peace process was tried, failed. This didn't go further. We all know it. We all are aware of it. And then so many changes happened. But at the end of the situation, that if both sides use violence, there will be no peace. And that is the common understanding. However, how it impacts us here is my main area of studies and my area of, because I do see that this October 7th attack has seriously polarized our society, both the communities. Seriously, I have never experienced this in my whole life in Canada. There is no space that we can really talk, because, for example, just giving a very crude example, given my background, if I go somewhere, people would likely judge me that I am on the other side, i.e. I have to be pro-Palestinian. You see, that judgment is so accurate and so endemic now. There is no way out, I do see. And this is my serious concern, because we must understand our young people are consuming these discussions offline and online both. Our young people are not devoid of these discussions in so many ways, in family table, within the groups in canteen, in football field, in a school break. They are talking about it. I do teach a course currently, global politics. I talk about these things. And I have a student from Palestine in my class. His family is right there in Gaza. So these are very acute. People are affected. People are impacted. But the amount of, my only suggestion is that there must be a way to break this cycle of violence. It has to be.
Yeah.
And where is that? And who will do that? You see? And that is the big question, that how do you break this cycle of violence?
Well, I'll jump in and say, maybe if we can collectively as teachers, break the cycle of violence, the document I want to share with you today that we worked on as a project, if we can prevent the violence from beginning in the first place, like that's what we can control as teachers. And I'd like to put aside the conversation about that world out there right now, just for the moment, because you asked the bigger question about how did we get so polarized. And I would add to that our world seems to exist now in echo chambers. We've got kids who find like-minded kids, if not in their schools, in their classrooms, online. Adults are doing the same thing. We're reading, we seek out information that verifies what we already believe. And you know all this, I don't have to tell you that. So part of what motivated this project was the sense that, yes, it can happen here. Even though we've had really small incidence numbers, there are, they can be brewing right now as we speak. We don't know that. And certainly we have nothing to compare to what we see in the United States with kids becoming shooters. But, we've got kids with machetes, those stories have been in the paper recently. And those kids might have been shooters if we've had a more liberal gun environment in Canada. And so those kids right now are sitting in our classrooms. And what we discovered on this project, let me just give you a quick little bit of background. We applied for a grant from Public Safety Canada to develop a resource for teachers. So we were gifted a sizable amount of money. And as a former consultant in social studies, I think I knew how to produce documents and resources for teachers. So we pulled together two different teams of people, a team of practicing teachers, supplemented by people like Kauser, Dr. Mark Cooley, Dr. Lloyd Cornelson, if you know any of those names, who were our advisors. And then we had an educational advisory group, so we had representation from superintendents, principals, parent groups, cultural groups. So we tried to bring together, as we did at the department, creating a curriculum, a broad group of people to create this document. So the teachers did the hands-on helping develop, and the advisors were touching base once in a while. And after, it took us 2 years, and I'll draw you into the document in a moment. It took us about 2 years to put this together, and Dr. Lloyd Cornelson just recently at a public venue talked about how when he first started with us, he was quite afraid and frightened and sad and wasn't sure he could carry on with the project because it seemed so bleak. How does one intervene? How does one fix? How does one change? And we had no clue. Counselor, you could have done all the research on what is going on and how much polarization there is and how much radicalization and extremism and how many shooters have been there. He can tell us all that stuff. But there's very little that says, so what do we do about it? And none of us knew what to do about it. And the short answer we came to really quickly was that it's pretty hard to do something about it when the kid is already from 0 to 60. But we've got from 0 to 59 is what we discovered as teachers to intervene. And the biggest takeaway from this, I would say to you, is if you can recognize a student who is that kid in the back of the room, that loner, the kid without community, the kid without friends, because the profile, I know you'll agree with this, Counselor, the profile of who gets radicalized, who gets majored in extremis is the one who has nothing better in their life. If they can't find community in their classroom, in their school, in their family, they're going to find it. And not only are they going to find it, that really nebulous, horrible community is going to find them. They infiltrate the chat rooms, they infiltrate the game centers, they do all of that stuff, and they get there and they get those kids and they groom them. I used to teach preventative sexual education, and that grooming process for sexual abuse, the same thing goes on for extremism, radicalization. They're very sophisticated people who know all the tricks. They'll start off like Andrew Tate starts off with humor, the misogynistic humor that's kind of, is that really a bad thing or not? I'm not so sure. And then it gets deeper and darker, and then they go down the path. So that the very same process goes on. So knowing that, we knew that we had to pull together a document that would provide teacher with some resources, the resources to prevent. And there's a little bit devoted to intervention, and we're hoping in phase 2 of this project, we may go into deeper on that. So with that in mind, it took 2 years to pull this together. And our challenge now, which is why Kauser referenced the Manitoba Teachers Society, when I worked at the Department of Education, it's really interesting that education is a series of gates that and education are gatekeepers. There are 2 big avenues into a school system. You can be at work at the Department of Education and create curricula and define, pretty much all that has to go on in schools. They have an awful lot of power and control. And then there are the school divisions and the teacher society, and school divisions all encompass all that idea of teachers. You control what goes on when those doors are closed. Now, there are tons of organizations out there who would like to tell you what to teach and give you resources to promote their particular perspectives and their ways of being, their worldview, right? So I now find myself, and so when I was at the Department of Education, we were approached by those folks all the time. We have this resource we'd like you to give to the schools. Can you distribute this to all of the schools? And some of it was like, no, but you diplomatically would have to say so. And some of it was really good. So now I find myself in the position that we have a resource that we've been knocking on the Department of Education's door saying, we'd like to distribute this to schools, but we haven't made any progress. But MTS is helping us out. And I hope that when you look at this, you'll recognize the merit. This is not a new curriculum. In a short sentence, I would say this document is about good pedagogy. If you recognize the need to be the kind of teacher who recognizes that you don't teach math, you don't teach science, you teach a student how to be the best student they can be, to become a better mathematician, to become a better scientist. That if you don't have this child, this student, sort of self-fulfilled, they're not going to learn very much. And you know that from your most struggling students. So this document then is a way to help support the resources you need to have that child reach potential. So having said that, I'd like to just draw your attention. So there's just no way in this short time we can go through this whole document, but I hope I can entice you into going deeper. So I would like to draw your attention to, just very briefly, and don't spend your time reading it, but just look at page 1, and then at a later date, come back. That's the list of people that were on our 2 development teams, to give you a sense. I like to think it brings credibility to the document. Good people who had, good ideas, who helped share it. But then on page 3, I'd like you to just take 2 minutes for me on page 3. We created these enduring understandings. And would you just read through those 10 or so enduring understandings? And when you've done that, just flip through and look at the headlines. Don't stop to read, and make your way to page 21. But flip through a few of the pages and see some of the info that's been gathered there for you. All right, let's go to 21. If you're not finished the outcomes, you can come back to that. Just a show of hands, anyone here teaching elementary? I didn't expect we'd get many. If you have young children in your life, or you know people who teach elementary, this applies starting preschool, right? When kids start getting alienated, ostracized, marginalized, it starts young. And the sooner you can intervene on that. So kindergarten is not a day too soon. Keep that in mind. I think this page 21 is important because of the little set of bullets on the right-hand side. This is just a big question. Who is vulnerable? And isolated youth who are feeling isolated or lonely, people who are unhappy about themselves and what others think of them, youth who are embarrassed or judged about their culture, race, gender, or religion, youth who are stressed or depressed, fed up with being bullied or treated badly by other people, angry, confused, and pressured to stand up for other people who are being oppressed. There's a lot of senses of vulnerability, but those are just a few of them. Can you just to interview? Are any of you seeing kids like this in your school, in your classroom? Are you getting any signals? Seeing any signals? Just any share any stories?
I just say that since October 7th in my school, there's been a huge divide. Just to go off what he was saying, there's been a huge divide between students on one side versus the other, or perceived one side versus the other. So that's, yes, I'm seeing this.
Yeah. And you're not working in a school that's it's a public school, right? With all denominations, all.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so teachers don't know how to deal with it, and it gets very challenging.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Any other ideas? Can you share what you're seeing with your kids? Are you seeing isolated, the lonely, potentially radicalized kids?
We have protocols in place at school to identify this list. And then if we see it or signs of it, then we have like a protocol in place that we follow to intervene.
Good, good.
Yeah, so, I can't, once in a while, I can't say I've seen a lot of it, but I teach in a rural high school where I think even general awareness of October 7th is just not as high as it might be in the city. Yeah.
And one more page I want to draw your attention to is, I said we didn't do a whole lot of how to prevent or how to intervene, but on page 38 is a chart that talks about what to do if you're experiencing something. And I've given the amount of time, this is the kind of thing that we need to spend a whole 1 or 2 days on. Dr. Almond could do a whole morning on some of the background, some of the stories, some of the stats. Within 50 minutes, we're trying to throw all of this at you. The whole idea is to entice you to go a little bit deeper into this document. Take it back to your school, have a conversation with someone who may have the power to decide, and bring Dr. Counselor out for a full or half-day session with your school where we can dig a little deeper and explore some of the bigger issues, if that would interest you at all. But so some of the what to do if things happen, on the left-hand side of this column, there are sort of some of the big ideas of if you intervene with digital content, for instance, off the top, you have to handle things really carefully. That's sort of the short answer about what to do if you come across something. I would suggest you don't immediately leap to calling the authorities, but there'll be opportunities and instances where you do need to call the authorities if the alarm level is really high. Counselor, do you want to talk to that at all about intervention? You just actually had a case, did you not? Do you want to, in generic terms, talk about the case you had just intervened on?
So about intervention, as Linda alluded to, so we don't prescribe any format. It's highly contextual because it depends on the policies that the gentleman mentioned, that they have a protocol. So in some schools, institutions they have, in some they don't. So and we don't go into that phase in our particular book because of that sensitivity. However, our approach is very much community oriented. For example, in dealing with the very latest case, when it was brought to attention, we first approached the community which belongs to the case. And we briefed the community that this is what we have received. Now, what do you think about it? So the community decided, they took 2 days, 48 hours, what to do and how to handle it. Then again, I sat with them, and then we jointly decided, because this case is a little more sensitive and a little bit more tricky. So then we jointly decided next we should refer to where. And there are avenues like law enforcement, social support, intervention, mental health support. So there are a bunch of intervention tools and resources available we can refer. But our approach is always community-based first. We do not contact law enforcement at all. And if that has to be done at a very later stage, when we decide that this case has crossed the threshold of, normal situation.
Teachers have a difficult time with this notion. I think it was the UK that began a policy some years ago that if you see anything, you have to report it to the authorities.
Channel.
Do you want to talk to that? It's very interesting.
UK is possibly one of the Western countries came out with very funny ideas. I call it funny because it seems funny. It asked teachers to report about the students if they notice any signs of radicalization.
If you're worried.
Thousands of cases were referred, almost 90% backfired. There is nothing. A student was upset for some reason and it was reported that he is being radicalized. Can you imagine? So it's called channel program, CHANNEL, under the overall UK's anti-terror policy. And later on, it was heavily criticized by the next government, and they have possibly closed it. So these kind of things never works. It doesn't. And the more we securitize the issue, greater the problem. And thanks that these extra, foreign terror organizations are in a low, threshold now. But if it ever rises, just imagine how much securitization can create a problem. We have seen in the height of ISIS recruitment, over 180 children from our country went and joined this group. 180. Some are still waiting to come back, as you know.
How old would they have been?
Age range from 15, 16 to 26, 27. And there are individual case studies again available in public here. But what we can tell you that there are mothers, female, they are trying to come back with their children from various prisons in Syria and Iraq, and there are very much difficulty in getting them back and rehabilitate them. So it's just one of the dangers of having young people with you. And the another very recent case, some of you might know, some of you might not know. An international student was actually apprehended in border of Montreal, Washington, because of his planning of carrying out mass attack in New York, Jewish places. So if you consult it, he's there in the so this gentleman person was apprehended in the right time, and both countries kind of came together and sort of stopped it. But just imagine if this would have happened. And this guy was particularly a product of our October 7th, post October 7th environment. And he is a student who was studying here. And just so that you know on the context, three apprehended persons, those who are accused, alleged of killing Mr. Harjit Nijar in Surrey, were also international students. They were captured in Alberta, Edmonton. So we have all these things going on, right? And our only effort, which I might also appeal to you, because we are talking one-to-one, that have a read, and because you are the frontline persons in this fight against extremism. You are the main persons actually, not even parents.
Yeah.
Not even parents. You are actually. You have the power to change.
And more likely, you're the person who's going to recognize, like the parent doesn't always know necessarily that their son, they're most often a son, there are female radicals, but most often young men, disaffected men. They may not know how badly disaffected they are. They may not see how ostracized they are. The kid might pretend everything's fine, so you could be the front line. So recognizing how frustrating it is if you think of this issue as an iceberg, we've just scratched a little bit of the snow that's at the top of it, the rime off the top. This is very deep, quite complicated. As I said, CalStreet can teach a whole course around this. I hope that in a short time, we still have about 3 minutes left, in the short time that we've at least piqued your interest to walk through this, if not necessarily read every page, take a look at it. And if you're inspired at all, our website's at the top. This document is PDF there if you want more copies. We're available for support and follow-up, and we're hoping that MTS is going to, I'm quite confident we've had a Zoom call with them, and we're moving ahead with a partnership. So I think they're very much on board the idea that they want to help promote this. I know the principals organization and the superintendents are behind this too, but it's slow going when you don't have the weight of the Department of Education behind you, which we don't. So very quickly, any questions, any thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap up at 1:45? This is Dr. Ahmed's an amazing resource.
So just looking at page 21 of the sort of signs of vulnerability, and you talked about like being suspected, being marginalized. Is there anything in here, or do you talk about vulnerability on the basis of aggrieved entitlement more so than marginalization?
Oh, a good question, right? Because that Andrew Tate is what appeals to the
Exactly.
degree of entitlement.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
privilege.
think it's sort of like what Clayton was talking about this morning, that when we can create atmospheres in our room that encourage good conversation and empathy and critical thinking, all those signs of good pedagogy, and making, I don't know if you know Dr. Mark Cooley and his storytelling that he's done with students. Is anyone aware of that? He's at U of W. He worked at Sisler, right?
I think so.
Not sure which one it was. Gordon Bell. And he took kids who were really struggling, a lot of Indigenous kids who didn't even want to come to school ever, who were real problem issues in their lives. And through the process of storytelling and having people share themselves with each other in a really safe, open, he calls them brave spaces, not just safe spaces. If you just kind of get down to the basic humanity of kids, if you have that opportunity, that's where that intervention can start. And the power of that, if you do it with a trusted good group of kids, the kids become peer pressure for that. And they're not gonna listen to us as adults, say you need to be this way. But if they say something that's, off, or the rest of the kids think, that doesn't sound right, and they take them on, that's the kind of thing, that kind of peer pressure can help change, especially in that privileged kind of position. And that's a really long round of the answer, but it's about communication, and it comes down to good pedagogy and good communication. Recognizing where there might be a problem and finding, maybe it's a kid where you have to quietly intervene after class, not in a conversational full class setting, but something going on. I noticed you said something today is that what you really think? Tell me more about what you're thinking, and then through trust. Again, good pedagogy. Any other questions or thoughts?
And a bit of self-promotion, so I'm not losing this opportunity to promote ourselves, is that our project is one of the unique projects in our country. There is no such project that really connect with the teachers. And I go yearly once in Ottawa to attend other project members and project leaders. So it's the third year, we just finished attending in May. So this is a unique approach of talking to teachers. And this time, federal government invited teachers from other provinces. And the situation is not good actually. Some of the teachers actually cried on the stage in front of us. And this is the reason because, as gentleman here said that he is seeing so much of, polarization in the class after the October 7th event. And how do you really talk about it? How? You cannot be neutral in many cases. People will ask your opinion. My students ask direct opinion. Yesterday one was asking, sir, what is your religion? I said, well, by God, I'm a Muslim. Or not, sir, what do you believe actually? Because she had an idea that I don't believe in any religion. So young people do challenge us, right? And if it is goes, if their questions are not answered, they will definitely seek answers on them.
Yeah.
And it is very easy now, very easy. And the problem is these whole things, echo chamber, blah, blah, whatever you hear, these are real. These are real. And the problem of young minds, as most of you are parents yourself, you see, there is no time to check the veracity of the information that there is no time. Whatever is there is good. And you do not know actually how many of your students do subscribe to all these very complicated things. You do not know. Nobody knows, not even parents.
Yeah.
And there are tough groups that I do follow in Telegram and other channels. These groups literally educate you how to make a bomb. Simply. They give you the manuals, they train you, they share videos, and the amount of homophobia is unimaginable. And exactly we don't know who is reading those, who is subscribing those. We don't know. And that is the problem of our time. If you ever hear the lectures of Yuval Noah Harari of Hebrew University, one of my favorite historians, he just published his book Nexus. Just read the abstract. You don't have to buy it, but just read the abstract, what he's foreseeing, the coming of AI. The AI will change the whole dimension of this information. It has already started changing. You will not realize what you are really watching within the next couple of years. You won't. AI will fundamentally change the way we consume this information.
Has already. On that note, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. If you would like, there's a couple of extra documents around. If you'd like to take one to share with the principal or other people in your school division, please help yourself.
Please do share and please help us to secure funding. Thank you very much.
Well, that. Thank you.